Alright, Wayne Defrancesco here again. And as you can see, we got Jonathan Byrd on the left, and the man he's been compared to, and who he says is his idol, Ben Hogan, here on the right. Now, I hope you're at the website, WayneDefrancesco.com, and if you like the videos, in order to get first crack at them, and to get the instructional videos and other more detailed stuff, hope you'll consider joining the website. Now, let's take a look here. Now, remember, Jonathan Byrd just won 2 tournaments in a row. He's playing great golf. So this is not meant to be critical when I compare him to Hogan. What I wanted to point out was some of the similarities and some of the differences. There are more differences than you might think, because to the eye, when you watch Byrd swing, because of the hand position at the top, it has that look of flatness that we would say Hogan was known for. But some big differences here, and I wanted to go over them. So the first thing I wanted to show you, now this is, I think Hogan's probably hitting, these films were done at Augusta in 1947, I believe. He had, or maybe 48, and these are known as the power golf swings. He had won a major recently, and it's possible that the power golf swings were shot here. I'm not sure of that, but certainly it's of that era. Now, here's what I want to point out, and both these camera angles are kind of weird, but the cameras are stationary, so we can see certain things, and one of those things would be the level of the head during the swing. Now, if I look at, I'm going to move Byrd's swing here a little bit and keep showing you the very start of the swing. So what you're going to see is the arms and shoulders squeeze a little bit, and you'll see a lifting. So just a little bit of his hat is going to rise up above that red line. There's a slight delay in the shaft. You can see the club head will stay stationary momentarily. The club grip will move maybe an inch or so. So he sets up a slight drag which maintains the cup in the back of the left hand. But this backswing has no lowering in it. It goes up a little bit and it stays up. When we look at his setup from behind, we'll note that he's fairly bent over with fairly low hands, which is not a Hogan trait. Now, let's take a look at Hogan. This is a little off angle here, but again, stationary camera, so we can see up and down movement. Now, take a look at this backswing, and you can note right away that what Hogan is doing is loading down into the ground. He always had a very slight rightward movement, but hardly at all, and then the head would move back to the left. But down is the word here. So we're always moving down. So he'll get to about here, and then in transition you'll see it drop again. Now if we watch Jonathan, we'll see the head lift. Now it's back to the level, and then through the ball, when the right shoulder chases, the head will drop under the line. But even then, not very much. So as far as the dynamics in the pivot movement, certainly Byrd's, he is not creating as much depth in his hips, and he is not creating as much compression into the ground. So there is not as much loading there as with Hogan. So when we switch to the behind view here, And let's pick out a swing of Byrd's. When we look at this view, now this was a little punch shot here, so let's see if we can pick out a little longer swing. So let's take a look again. Again, the hallmark of Hogan's swing to me is the pivot movement. The thing that most people notice is the eventual angles formed in between his arms and the ground, and the way the shaft moves. But when you watch this thing go back, you're going to see the head drop as the head stays out and almost jogs a little forward. The butt goes way deep. And what he has created from a fairly erect position here, you can see he's standing up at about 64, and find another little longer swing again here. So let's go, here we go, a little longer shot. So here we'll see a much more bent over position and lower hands. Now here's the backswing. So what Hogan has done is he's created much more angle by lowering into the ground, and then lowers again heading down. Now, so the big difference now, I want to show you, and again, this is a golf channel camera, so it's never going to be still enough to really keep these lines and look, but we can just sort of see what happens. So you can see here, if you look at his head up against the backdrop of the green here, you'll see it lift, stay up, and then there's a little bit of fall back. You can see it. You can see the top of the head. If I get him up here and put a line in front of his cap here, you'll see a little fall back. Now, the combination of not lowering, of starting with a lot of spine angle and then lifting a bit, is going to make the angle in the waist right here is much less than what Hogan has created. So when Byrd comes down toward impact, when his hands are even with the ground, or even the shaft's even with the ground, let's take a look alone at the upper right arm. So here's Hogan's, and here's Byrd's. Now, the key there is where the upper arm lies in relation to the upper trunk. So, if you look, Hogan has far more space for his right arm, and thus, when he opens up to hit the ball, the right arm can follow the chest and release to the left. Byrd's right arm is going to release a little bit straighter out. You can see it right there. But with his incredible strength, I mean, he's got one of the great physiques in golf. I mean, he is just in perfect physical condition, just immensely strong. So he can maintain these things and get his arm behind him and get it around and get it on the ball as well as anyone. So my opinion here is that Jonathan Byrd could be the best player in the world, or at least the best ball striker, if he might incorporate, since he really likes Hogan, if he really looked at what Hogan does dynamically during his swing with his pivot movement. You know, certainly Byrd's arm swing, plane, wrist angles, release, it's all really wonderful stuff. Just very, very connected, very simple. Keeps the shaft in control. But to me, if he stood a little more erect and created some of these angles and used the ground a little more, I think he could hit it further. And he wouldn't have to hit so many shots where he held the club off so it came up. Let me show you a wedge shot here. Now, he had tons of these shots where the club would drop in, and then on the release he would hold it off and keep the face pointing almost straight up. So there were tons of those shots during the round. And he did nicely with it. I'm not saying anything is wrong with it, but to my mind, if you're going to model yourself after Hogan, I think one of the ideas would be to see if you could get your pivot motion to be like his, because I think that was the greatness of Hogan was in the body movement. So if we watch a shot here, another hold off shot where if you see the shaft here. See, Hogan hit most of his, even his cut shots, the shaft would release around. So again, I think Byrd relies on his strength quite a bit, whereas Hogan worked it a little bit more with technique. And I think the big benefit would be that with that kind of strength, that if Byrd had this ability to, well, I'm sure he's got the ability, if he tried to push back a little bit and lower into the ground and thrust off, and he could pick up 10 or 15 more yards. And again, it's already so controlled that if he had a little more dynamic in it, who knows? Like I said, I think he's got the wherewithal to be one of the premier ball strikers of the age. And we need somebody like that because, with the new equipment, control has kind of gone out the window. So, we're kind of looking for a guy that can really, really control the golf ball. So there you have it. Again, not being critical, just maybe suggestions and looking to see. When people say, oh, he swings exactly like Hogan, well, he really doesn't. But he certainly swings well enough to win on the tour, which is pretty cool. All right.